Hi everyone, and welcome to Uncovered Vintage Fashion Magazine Review. I'm Stephanie, and I've been collecting and selling vintage fashion magazines for over 20 years.
And I'm Morley. I'm a former copywriter and am now an award-winning playwright and screenwriter.
Together, we will examine some of your favorite vintage fashion magazines from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
On Uncovered, we'll discuss some of the magazine's models, layouts, and did I mention the models?
And we'll also review some of the ads and articles that make these magazines such a great piece of pop culture history. So, fasten your seatbelts and let's get uncovered. Today's guest arrived on the fashion scene in the early 70s and quickly rose to the very top of his field, showcasing his natural talent and excellent eye as a hair and makeup artist. He has worked with the top models and celebrities of the day, Lauren Hutton, Cheryl Tiegs, Beverly Johnson, and Jaclyn Smith, just to name a few. As if that weren't enough, our multi-talented guest expanded his repertoire to include a very successful career in photography. You've seen his work all over Vogue magazine. In fact, his work for them spanned 20 years. He has also worked on some of the most cherished and recognizable ad campaigns for companies such as Revlon, Avon, and Halston. As for his photography, he infuses it with his unique personality and style. Uncovered Vintage Fashion Magazine Review is thrilled to welcome Renaissance man, Francis Rick Gillette.
Hey, Rick, welcome.
Rick.
Hello, nice to see you.
You as well. We're really excited to meet you.
Thank you.
Would you please tell our listeners about your early life before coming to New York City?
I'm sorry, what did you say that again?
Would you please tell our listeners about your early life
Oh, okay. All right. So I was born in Rome, New York, and I lived there, through high school. And right after high school, I decided that I wanted to work for Vogue magazine. So I figured that my inroad or the talent that I had doing hair could possibly be an inroad to the magazine. So I very quickly after high school got a license, and I had this natural ability to be able to just look at a photograph of a hairstyle and I could just copy it. So that's what actually made me decide that I really might have the ability to actually work in fashion. And so, I was supposed to be an interior designer. I didn't tell my parents when, when I signed up for the beauty course, but I just knew that I needed to be on set making pictures. And okay, so by the time I was 19, I was working in Syracuse, New York, in what was actually the best salon in town at the time, in the Hotel Onondaga in Syracuse. And very quickly, got a really nice following. And before I knew it, I was stolen by another new salon that opened. And that's what salons do. They hear of, new talented people and they go after them. So anyway, so the thing is that I worked in 2 salons in Syracuse, but all of this happened within about 2 years, actually. Mm-hmm. And so in other words, by the time I was 21, I had already been working, for like almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I just was plotting my way the whole time of like, how can I actually work for Vogue?
Why Vogue?
Why Vogue? Well, there was Vogue and there was Bazaar, but I think that by the point that I was looking at the magazines, Vogue was really the magazine. Diana Vreeland had been there for a while. Richard Avedon was in every issue, Irving Penn. And I mean, I was aware of that when I was in high school. So luckily for me in Syracuse, I had this really beautiful client who she was amazing because with no makeup on, she just had this incredible pale beauty, like very pale blonde hair, incredible bone structure. And she was the hostess in like the restaurant in Syracuse. And so she would actually come in every day to get her hair recombed.
Wow.
And she would do her makeup in the salon while she was waiting for me to be available to recomb her hair. And I mean, you know, we're talking about very elaborate hairdos, you know, with you know, a basket of curls on the back of the head. So, I mean, it really did need touching up every day. And anyway, so I watched her while I was working on my other clients. I was also watching her do her makeup, and it was just amazing. I mean, first of all, she used the most expensive makeup on the market at the time, Princess Marcella Borghese.
I remember that name.
Yeah, the Italian line of makeup that ultimately Revlon bought, but then a very long time after. But anyway, so she did this really complicated makeup where she started out with an under base that was an incredible color. It was like a lavender. And then she put her foundation over that, which was very, very pale because she was very pale. And she just kept building this face. And I watched, usually by the time she was in my chair, she was pretty much done. She just probably was just going to put on her false lashes, which was the end thing, and the eye makeup, and you know, and her mouth, and she was going to be out the door. So anyway, I think that after watching her for a while and then starting to, you know, practice on friends or whatever in terms of makeup, and even practiced on myself, and actually won Miss Rochester in the big, yeah, in the very big drag contest at the time. I was 21 years old. No, I was 20 years old. And my older brother suggested that we go to this drag contest in Rochester. And I had never done that. And, you know, but he said, you've got to do this. He said, you know, I said, well, okay. I mean, I've acted before, so I guess I can do this, right? So he said, yeah, you're going to win. And I didn't really understand why he was so confident, but he was. And so I did my own makeup. He did this. The pictures of me are actually on.
Have you posted those on Instagram?
Oh, yeah.
You're gorgeous.
Thought you were aware of them.
Remember them. You are gorgeous. No wonder you won. Okay, now I know
the two in the blonde wig. That was that was the first contest. And yeah, there's the picture of me on stage with the trophy.
Oh, that is so cool. I don't think I saw that. I didn't realize it was a drag contest. Oh, that's so cool. Now I know the story behind the story.
Yeah. So anyway, my brother was right about it. And so that was the first time that I actually, you know, did makeup seriously on myself. But the thing is that honestly, I needed so little makeup that it was like, I mean, if you look at the pictures, you look at these other drag queens that are on stage, and I just look like this pretty girl, and they're like, you know, drag queens. So anyway, though, that was, and you know what's interesting actually about that is an experience that I had recently that I will tell you about later.
Okay.
That it's just the most extraordinary thing that has happened to me since I stopped doing hair and makeup in 1989.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, okay. So, where are we now? I'm still in Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, you know, I was in a relationship. It was really, really nice. but it was really starting to feel like, like a straight married couple, and life was just not what I planned for myself. So I just one evening just told my friend that I'm leaving. He said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to New York to work for Vogue magazine." And he said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to New York to work for Vogue magazine." And he said, "You're just leaving me?" I said, "I have to do this.
Yeah.
I've got to do this." So it's shortly after, I actually was on a bus with a friend to New York. And we got off the bus. I mean, I had been to the city before, so it wasn't like it was completely foreign to me. But so we got off the bus and, found a nice, inexpensive hotel in the village and, set it up for the night. And so after that, I had some friends that lived in the city. So I went and, slept on their couch for a bit. And to be honest with you, before I knew it, I had met someone else. And so within 2 weeks of living in New York, I was living in a penthouse on East 65th Street.
Not bad.
So yeah, so it was like moving up, I was going where I wanted, reasonably fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, though, I of course had to then get a job. And the thing that was so crazy was that my older brother worked in the same salon that I did. I mean, that he was the person that, that I first saw doing hair. So, and even though I never tried to like learn from what he was doing, he would come home and visit every couple of weeks and do my mom's hair, do my aunt's hair. And I would just see him doing this in passing. It wasn't like I just sat there and watched him. But anyway, somehow or other, I picked it up. And as I said before, I could copy a Sassoon haircut out of a magazine. And in any case, though, so my brother and I are both working in the same salon in Syracuse, and one of his clients happened to be Mr. Kenneth's sister.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so I, at the point where I'm really thinking I've got to get out of Syracuse, I mentioned to her that I wanted to go to New York to work for Vogue magazine. And she said, because I knew that Kenneth was her brother. And, I said, "Could you possibly give me a note for your brother or something?" She said, "Absolutely. I can give you a recommendation."
Wow.
So I go to New York thinking I had this recommendation. And so again, after I had kind of found myself in the city a bit, but this is within about 3 weeks of my being there, I finally get up the courage to go to the Kenneth salon and explain to the person at the desk that I actually had a note of recommendation for Mr. Kenneth from a family member, and would it be possible to get him a note, or could I meet him or whatever? They treated me like I was had 3 heads or something, and I was trying to be just really nice and polite and patient. And so then this, I think it was like a manager, came out and said, "Well, you're not going to be able to meet Mr. Kenneth without an appointment. And if you want to work at Kenneth, you will start out as an assistant." Well, that's all he had to say to me. I said, "I have never been an assistant. I've never been an assistant. I have been a stylist from the moment I picked up a comb, and I don't intend to assist anyone now or ever.
Wow.
And I walked out. Well, then
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I guess I was a bit of a brat, but
Whatever.
no, I mean, I thought this is crazy. It's like, I know what I want to do. I don't need them. I don't have to prove myself to them that I can do what I know I can do. So I ended up, a couple of weeks of trying to figure out, okay, so what comes next? And I started kind of researching for salons that did photography work, that had stylists who also worked freelance. And I found this salon in the Village called Barada. It was on 8th Street between 5th and 6th. And at the time, 8th Street between 5th and 6th was really happening. I mean, there were all of these wonderful mod boutiques, and because we're talking about 1966, I guess. Yeah, I think like 66. And because I was 21. So, so 8th Street was happening. There were all these wonderful Italian shoe stores and all of that. So I'm standing out in front of Barada, and I'm kind of confused because it looks like it's just a beautiful boutique with women's clothes. I didn't realize that there was this huge salon behind the boutique. So I'm standing there, and this beautiful young woman comes out and she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I'm a hairstylist, and I'm really looking for a job, but I wasn't sure if this was a salon or not." She said, "We're definitely a salon." She said, "We can always use another stylist if you're good." And I said, "Okay." She said, I said, "Well, try me out." So I go in. She gives me this older manicurist lady with super bleached hair and not much of it at all. And but the thing is, I had dealt with that before, because in the 60s there was so much damaged bleached hair that it was commonplace. I mean, it was terrible, but you had to learn how to do it. So I did her hair, and Marianne was the young woman. She was actually the manager of the salon, and she comes over. She looks at it. She says, "You're hired."
Wow.
And so I started working there, and problems started because there were like 13 operators, and they really liked me. The boss, Tommy Barada, really liked me, but I would take like 45 minutes or an hour to do a haircut when everybody else was like knocking them out in 20 minutes. And, the most they spent on anybody was half an hour. And so, Marianne would say to me, "Rick, you really have to like speed it up. And, you can't be spending an hour to do a haircut." And I said, "This is how I work." I said, "I'm getting a lot of clients, aren't I?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, so then you're going to have to change things for me. I'm going to take the time that I take. And if I can't do as many clients as you want, you just charge more for me."
Good strategy.
Smart.
Yeah.
It made perfect sense. It's right. You've got somebody, who can really perform. And, so why not let them do what they do best and charge more? They don't have to do 30 clients,
Yeah.
So actually they went for it. And so I developed this really great following. But I hated working in a salon. So every once in a while I would just quit. And I would like go to the beach for a while, and then I would come back and they would hire me back.
Of course.
And it was really, they were so sweet. They were really wonderful. And but finally what happened was that one of Tommy's clients switched to me, which did not sit very well with Tommy or the manager of the salon. But what could they do? I mean, the woman switched. So, and it turns out though, her name was Valerie Brodsky. And I don't know if you know the name Brodsky, but Joel Brodsky was a very famous photographer at the time who photographed mostly personalities. He did the most incredible pictures of Jim Morrison that are still the most famous pictures. They're the most beautiful headshots of Jim Morrison in black and white. And no one's ever done better than those, or no one did while Jim was alive. So anyway, Valerie was then my client. So at one point, she wanted me to streak her hair, but didn't want to like sit in the salon to do it. So I said, fine, come to my apartment, I'll do it there. So she's at my apartment, we're streaking her hair, and she's saying, okay, so tell me, what do you really want to do? And I said, well, I came to New York to work for Vogue. And she said, well, how do you plan on getting there? And I said, well, I'm going to have to start, freelancing and working with photographers and put together portfolios. What I understand would be the way to do it. And she said, well, absolutely. And she said, and you know what? If you want to work in the studio on your days off, I can get you $600 a day. I said, what? And I mean, that was, first of all, I was making very good money in the salon, but $600 a day was,
it's a
considerably more.
Today it's a fortune.
So I said, well, absolutely, I would love to do that. But she said, well, I represent, a couple of other photographers who actually do a lot of fashion and beauty. And she said, Joel is mainly a personality photographer. So, but I can definitely, get you work with them. So the next thing I know, I'm in the studio working for Avon. And by then I was very confident about doing makeup. And there I am. I'm like working for Avon doing hair and makeup. And before I know it, they want me all the time. And other clients. So anyway, though, at one point I'm booked. And again, I was only doing this like on my 2 days off. But what happened was I started to get so busy that I had to like call in sick at times, or I remember the time that this all played out. I called in and said, look, I really can't come in today. And I know I don't have a lot of clients. Can you just, kind of apologize for me? But my new kitchen stove is coming. And she said, well, you really, you shouldn't be doing. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I've got to be here. Well, I hated lying. Honestly, I really did not like to lie. But so we hung up the phone and I went to the Four Seasons Hotel, to the penthouse, which is where we were booked to do the shoot. And I get there and the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my entire life is on the bed in a teddy. She's wearing this incredible little teddy, like Victoria's Secret. And it turns out that and her name just went right out of my head. It's so strange. She was in the Summer of 42.
Oh, Jennifer O'Neill?
Jennifer O'Neill. And she I swear to you, I mean, honestly, she, even with all of the beautiful women that I worked with, honestly, no one was quite as beautiful as Jennifer at that moment.
Wow.
And I mean, that incredible, dark hair and those blue eyes and that pale skin and just gorgeous. Well, before I know it, I'm doing makeup on Jennifer. And then the other model was another well-known model.
Let's go. I'm good at trivia, Rick. Come on.
It's got to come. Anyway, she ended up marrying Chris von Wagenheim.
Oh my gosh.
It'll come to me.
Regine.
But she was Regine Jaffrey.
Regine Jaffrey.
And Regine was so sweet. And so I did her makeup, and she loves it, and her hair. But in those days, the models would do, they might do 2 or 3 bookings in one day. So they would spend, they might spend 3 hours here, half a day there, or whatever. So anyway, she finishes and leaves in my hair and makeup. She goes to this job for Clairol. And who is the hairdresser? Tommy Barata, my boss.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
And she walks in and he says, Regine, you look fantastic. Like, who did your hair and makeup? And she said, oh, this new guy. She said, he's so good, Rick Gillette. And Tommy said, Rick Gillette? And I gather he left her standing there, got on the phone, called the manager of the salon, who then tracked me down because Regine had said where she was when she had her hair and makeup done. They tracked me down in the penthouse, and I get this phone call from Marianne. She's saying, luckily, she didn't say you have to leave this minute. She said, as soon as that job is over, you have to come to the salon. We have to talk. So I get to the salon, and she sits me down and is saying that, you can't do this. You can't be working here and working freelance. And I said, well, first of all, you can't tell me what to do on my days off. I said, of course, I shouldn't be, telling you that a stove is being delivered and then go to a job. But at the same time, I don't intend to stop freelancing. And she said, well, there's only one star in this salon. And I said, yes, it's me. And she said, no, it's not. It's Tommy. And I said, well, I'm sorry. What I think we should do is you can handle my bookings. You can take a commission, because I had already heard about that other agents were doing that.
Okay.
And I actually had been told about these 2 hairdressers that were starting up an agency, actually. And actually it was Maury Hobson and Alan Lewis.
Oh.
Well, so I'm not sure how I had Maury's phone number. Someone must have given it to me at the studio. In any case, though. So Marianne is not going for my proposal. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I love all of you, but if you don't want to, if you don't want to work with me.
Well, what a huge mistake.
Well,
I think.
They thought they had it made. They had Tommy. So, okay. So I walked, I said, okay, well, we'll stay in touch, whatever. I walked out of the salon. I went to a payphone. I called up Maury Hobson and I said, My name is Rick Gillette. He said, I've heard of you. And I said, it appears that I'm going to need an agent. And he said, well, do you want to meet Ellen and I for a drink? And I said, sure. So I went and met them at PJ Clark for a drink. And within an hour, they were representing me. But I don't really know what happened to I can't remember what happened to their agency, or if it wasn't really started yet and they actually were being represented by Armand St. Gilles was his name. And Armand was the hair and makeup agent in the business. He handled, Suga was his, I guess Maury must have been his. I'm not entirely sure, but also Way Bandy was represented by Armand. Yeah. So before I know it, I'm represented by Armand, and which was fantastic. I think that one of the very, very first jobs that I got, by this point, by the way, well, no, it wasn't one of the very first jobs I got. I did a few jobs, and so some time went by. So by this point, it was probably like 1969. And the job that they booked me on is that I have to go to Faye Dunaway's apartment at 7:30 in the morning at the San Remo on Central Park West, and that I'm doing her hair for publicity photos for the arrangement, and the photographer is Richard Avalon.
Mm. And there's your in to Vogue, right?
So no, not yet. So I show up at her apartment, and she answers the door, and I swear to you, she looked like the most beautiful teenager. I mean, just so beautiful, soaking wet hair, no makeup on. She had just gotten out of the shower. She's in a white terry cloth bathrobe. She asked me, would I like some coffee or orange juice or whatever? And we go to her dressing room. You know, she had a proper dressing room in the apartment, makeup, mirrors, and all. And so I'm setting her hair, and she starts doing her makeup. And again, it was very much like my client in Syracuse that did her makeup. And Faye was sort of approaching her face in very much the same way, like building this new face. And but as she's doing it, she's popping what I thought were vitamins, and she's drinking orange juice, and she's, popping these things in her mouth. And as she's doing her makeup, she starts to turn into someone else. and she's like almost done with her makeup, and I'm going to be finishing her hair at the studio, of course. So and she lights up a cigarette, and she has pretty much finished her makeup at that point. Her puts her false lashes on, and suddenly she's Faye Dunaway.
The transformation.
And not only did she transform visually, but she transformed from this very sweet person to this really bossy movie star.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I couldn't believe it, because I just thought, well, there's something more than vitamins in those pills. And I mean, it was the 60s, so she probably had popped some speed. And so we get in the limousine, we go to the Avalon studio, and I had to introduce myself, and he was nice enough, but he didn't pay a hell of a lot of attention to me. And then I did the hair, and what was appropriate was to actually do it in an up kind of thing. So I did basically a French twist thing. And so that way, I mean, while she was on set, I really didn't have to do much, and I think, I mean, that was really the way Avedon wanted it. He didn't know who I was. And so, I mean, it went well. And we finished. I, left. I mean, I don't remember, how they said goodbye or whatever, but I mean, obviously it wasn't like all warm and how great to meet you. But anyway, that was fine with me. I mean, I had just done Faye Dunaway's hair. So, anyway, I keep doing these, various jobs for Avon, and then I started working for Revlon. And now again, I had never at that point, I hadn't worked for a magazine. Then I start getting booked for Glamour, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not right. I am not right for Glamour. And they realized that I wasn't right for Glamour. And even though I did Cheryl Tiegs, and she looked beautiful and all of that, but it was like, I was a sophisticated hair and makeup person. I wasn't like Glamour.
Right.
So, but luckily, I was versatile enough that I was perfect for Mademoiselle. So, but that Mademoiselle didn't start to happen like a lot right away. But what did happen was I started working for this. I mean, now I think it's so funny because I started working for Woman's Day magazine, and Woman's Day magazine, was one of those checkout counter magazines at the grocery store, and they loved me, and it's and they would like. I mean, I couldn't do super Vogue stuff for them because it wasn't necessarily quite right for the clothes, but I could do the most sophisticated things I could do for them, and they loved it, and they were like booking me constantly, and I went on my first real trip with them to Bogota, Colombia.
Wow.
With Steen Svensson was the photographer. One of the models was Shelley Hack, and who was actually Steen's girlfriend at the time, and Susie Blakely. And I don't remember who the male model was, but he was really popular male model. And we had the most incredible time. And that trip sort of really cemented me with Steen Svensson and Shelley. And Susie went on to Hollywood and became a movie star. So, but anyway, one day I'm booked for a cover for Women's Day magazine at the Scavullo studio. I had never worked with Scavullo. I get there and the model's Lauren Hutton. And Lauren is giving me attitude, and because I pull out my equipment, and the brush that I used was a styling brush. It was not a Mason Pearson brush, which is a Mason Pearson is what, all of the rich ladies would use to brush their hair. You can't style hair with a Mason Pearson. Well, she's insisting that I can't use anything but a Mason Pearson. I said, look, I'm sorry. I can't do my job with that brush.
That's a paddle brush.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't style curl
Right.
or, yeah.
I don't know where she got the idea that I maybe some other hair person used it, but I don't know how. But in any case, so I just used my own brush, and her hair, Lauren didn't have really the greatest hair. We could make it look really, really good in pictures, but and at that point, it was not a great length. It wasn't a great haircut. So I set it, but basically just to look really smooth with like a wave at the temple, and then I rolled the length under and pinned it so that it ended up looking like she had a bob. like she had a short, a chin length haircut. And she said, I can't believe what you did with my hair. And she thought it was amazing. And so we get out there and Scavula loves it. They shoot the cover and, it's all great. I didn't get another shoot with him right away, but then I ended up getting some other, I guess I must have gotten another couple of jobs with Lauren. But I also met Donna Mitchell, who was Lauren's biggest competitor at the time. They were like the top Avedon choices. He loved Donna Mitchell and he loved Lauren Hutton. And he was actually trying to get, he was grooming them for a Revlon contract because he had had Revlon contracts with other models before, like Dovima, and so he was kind of grooming them for that, for the future. Well, so Donna and I really hit it off. So we actually really become friends. And so I started cutting her hair at my apartment. And so before I know it, and of course I told them, what I wanted to do. And I don't remember exactly how long after, but one day I get a phone call from Polly Mellon's office. Mrs. Mellon would like to meet you. And that was it. It was like,
amazing.
You were highly recommended by Lauren Hutton and Donna Mitchell, and Mrs. Mellon would like you to come up for an appointment. So that was it. It was like, okay, I had been in New York. By that point, it was probably by that point, it was like late 71, I guess, 72. And so I'm on my way to working for Vogue. And so I go to the appointment and I'm sitting in the, the reception. And it was just like out of, the movie Funny Face?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the movie Funny Face was, that's the reception area was still very much like out of another time period. It was really fashiony, but like kind of 50s, 60s looking, so I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there. And it's like, okay, when is she coming out? And finally, I'm there for almost 2 hours and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to stay here much longer. But then I said, you know what? You left Syracuse for this moment.
Right.
Yeah.
So you better just better stay sitting here. So I did. She comes out and, Polly was always like, when she would make an entrance, she would sort of rush into the room. And she's dressed in total Giorgio Sant'Angelo denim outfit with a studded denim jacket and a little t-shirt under it. And her hair was already silver. And she was all breathy and saying, oh, I'm so sorry. How have I kept you waiting long? And I said, 2 hours. And she sits down and she said, well, okay, well, let's see what you've got here. So she opens my portfolio and I had put together not pictures that I had done for Avon or, I had done specific tests for a portfolio to show to Vogue. So, and I was incredibly fortunate because I got to test with a lot of, up and coming young photographers, one of which was Chris von Wagener. And so she's flipping through this portfolio and she keeps saying, well, who did the hair here? And I said, I did. turns the page. Who did the makeup here? I said, I did. And this goes on until she's like finished with my book. And she said, she could not comprehend that I had done both things. And she closes the book and she says, well, what would you like to do for Vogue? And I said, hair and makeup. She said, no one does both. I said, I do. And, I was pretty adamant that I did both. And she said, well, we'll be in touch. And so I guess within a couple of weeks, I get a phone call. And my first booking with her was this little fashion thing that was being shot by Bob Stone. And so she was trying me out. And but it went really, really well. We got on really well. And so then next call I get is from Frances Stein's office. And Frances was, she was like, she and Polly were like neck and neck, and sort of on each other's neck as well. So so I get this booking with Frances, and that was with Bob Stone again. This was more of a real fashion beauty thing. And where with Polly, the first job I did with Polly, the makeup was kind of incidental. This job with Frances, I really did a makeup and really did the hair. And God, what's her name? It was a beautiful blonde European girl. And in fact, one of the pictures from that shoot is on my feed. It's still so beautiful. It's a black and white photo. So anyway, Frances is really happy. I get another call and I'm booked for a shooting at Irving Penn Studio. This is my third shoot for Vogue.
Wow.
And so it's so funny because they still were not really sure, about my doing hair and makeup. But in a funny way, Frances was kind of giving me a important hair and makeup job to do, but it's a story on the new eyebrow shape. And so Frances was confident that I could do this eyebrow, and I was perfectly confident that I could do this eyebrow. So the model was Paula, and she was just incredibly beautiful. And she had very fair kind of brows to begin with, but I spent like an hour tweezing her brows into pretty much, kind of a Marlene Dietrich, really, really thin brow, which was kind of the brow at the moment in the kind of whole mod thing that was going on. That was still.
I just want to interject. Would you have taken a job that was just hair or just makeup, or did you want it all?
I wanted it all. And we'll get to that. So what happens was that, so I do the job. I mean, of course I had to do the makeup and I had to do the hair, but it was such a close up on her face because what you really saw was the brow, and it's an absolutely beautiful picture and in black and white. And so it turns out that, my first picture with Penn is this full page black and white beauty picture. And my credit is, brow shaped by Rick Gillette. And then Frances books me. I'm pretty sure it was Frances that booked me again to go to Florida with Corkin Petchanian, who I had never worked with. He was the nicest man. He did the most beautiful pictures, very, very kind of really sophisticated, a bit European, kind of a little Helmut Newton, but not quite as aggressive. And anyway, so the model is Annie Holbrook, and she was new for Vogue. I was new for Vogue, but Frances gave us this really beautiful sitting to do, which was Fashion and Beauty, and it was the Golden Girl of Summer. And so I have to do first of all kind of a fresh face with kind of day makeup and hair, and but with a kind of, with a golden tinge to it, right? Kind of a, she's supposed to be sun-kissed.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that, and Frances is really happy, and in the end, I mean, it ended up opening the story in the magazine. And then there was another double-page spread, which was kind of a hair and makeup shot. Then they went in very close on the eye, which was a gold eyeshadow. And so it was a really close-up makeup shot. And then there was a fashion picture in black and white with Annie sitting on the steps, but where I had put her hair up, so she looked quite different. And anyway, it turns out that the actual sitting probably ended up being like, maybe it was like 10 pages, I think, or at least 10 pages. And so those pictures go to Vogue. The next thing I know, I get a call from Polly Mellon's office, and I'm booked to go to Palm Beach with her.
Wow.
And the photographer, again, is Corkin Pekchanian. The model is Karen Graham. But this, I didn't know, but this was 16 pages. And I did hair and makeup on Karen Graham. I cut her hair so that it was just below below the jaw bob, all one length. And I love this sitting. These pictures of Karen, to me, are absolutely some of the most beautiful pictures anybody ever did of Karen, because she is so natural and human in the pictures. She and Corkin got on so well, and he brought out this really softer, womanly side of her. And you can look up the shoot, because I think it was May 1973.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Because I got the cover. So it was my very first cover of Vogue, was Karen Graham in a white Ralph Lauren suit with this straight, center-parted, straight bob, and this beautiful kind of natural glowy makeup with a red mouth. And she had these beautiful blue beads that Polly always does some wonderful signature Polly accessory. And this, she did these beautiful blue necklace on her. And,
you must have been so excited. This was your goal and you made it.
Well, I didn't. Well, yeah. But the thing is, well, first of all, when we shot that, I didn't know for sure it was going to be a cover. But it definitely was a cover. And the shoot was Grace Mirabella. Well, first of all, Grace Mirabella had loved the first shoot that I did with Corkin. She totally loved what I did with Karen. By the way, Karen hardly ever let anybody do her makeup.
Really?
But she had no problem with me doing her makeup. She had no problem with me cutting her hair, which was so amazing. And after that, I mean, Corkin started booking me all the time for for advertising jobs. And so we finished the Karen Graham Corkin Pekchanian shoot, my first cover. The next, something else might have happened in between, but the next important booking actually was probably the one that really put me on the map. And so it was the June issue of American Vogue, the American Woman issue,
Yeah.
photographed on Lauren Hutton by Richard Avedon. Now, on that, I was to do hair only. I certainly was not going to refuse that, given what it was, and it was also going to be. Well, first of all, I mean, I didn't really know how important it was. All I knew was that it was going to be my first job with Lauren, with Richard Avedon, for Vogue. So anyway, I get to the studio and I found out that Lauren had asked for me specifically, but Avedon wasn't sold. So they test me the first day and goes really well. He wasn't kind of used to my style because I was doing a very done, undone kind of hair. And anyway, so that's what I was doing. Well, I wasn't booked the next day. The next day, they had booked someone else to test somebody else. And luckily for me, I was then booked the following day because the person they had tried, they weren't they must not have been as happy with. So I ended up doing the whole thing. And it was amazing. I honestly don't know what Avedon did on that shoot that was different. I don't know if he used a different lens. I don't know if it was just because the lighting was so incredibly calculated, but Lauren never ever looked more beautiful, and she never looked as beautiful again, as beautiful as she has. She never looked that same way. And okay, so it turns out it was just amazing. They obviously really, really liked the hair. I ended up with the cover. Again, I couldn't do the makeup on the cover because, again, it was Lauren was supposed to be doing the makeup. But so it turns out my second cover actually was right after my first cover, and it was now Lauren Hutton. Okay, so all I can tell you is that from that sitting on, I was in practically every issue of Vogue.
Oh, I know.
For 73, 74, into 75. Then in 75, I did the other most important job that I had ever done for Vogue, which put us on the cover of Time magazine. The article was Sex in Vogue, and it was the story of O that we did with Helmut Newton in Saint-Tropez, with Lisa Taylor, Peter Keating, and oh gosh, what was her name? The beautiful blonde European model. That I totally went off the rails on that shoot. I mean, I had worked with Helmut before, and we did like this really incredible shoot called Florida Sun Times. So we had done that, and Polly was so happy, and that was with Lisa and Jerry Hall. And so when we get to Saint-Tropez, Helmut was totally amenable for me to just do what I did. But I did hair that was completely undone. I mean, it was like downright, it was like beachy hair. Sometimes it was cut well, but it was, I did it in little braids, so it was kind of a little bit frizzy. And then other times I did wet hair and just sort of really stylized it. And the makeup was always really slightly strong and really beautiful, like dark eyes. And the pictures were all about sexiness. And it was fantastic. I got the best credit that I ever had in Vogue. I honestly don't know, and this sounds terrible, but I don't know if anybody else ever got a credit like this, because the issue opened, and on the opening spread, there was a rather large credit for me saying, these so many pages, it was a lot of pages, these so many pages, the hair and makeup wizardry of Rick Gillette.
Wow.
Wow. I know that layout very
Now,
well. I may have that issue, and it is stunning.
Well,
Stunning.
that just tells you Polly, how well, I mean, obviously, as hard as Polly could be, she obviously really believed in me.
Oh, yes.
Clearly. And I mean, she would have been responsible for that credit. So, okay, so now from there, I mean, my career just went on. And then, and I mean, I was consistently busy up until 1978, close to 79. I decided that I wanted to take photo classes. So, and I was in a relationship with a young person that was taking photo classes at the main photo workshop. So I was going up there, spending quite a bit of time up there, and taking some classes. And then we went on a trip that lasted way too long, but it was fantastic. So for about really the good part of a year, I wasn't working. And then when I did go back to work, I ended up working for Max Factor in Hong Kong and ended up with hepatitis B.
Oh my God.
So then there was and I was one of the first cases of hepatitis B in America.
Oh.
So that took up the good part of almost another year. In the interim, I had decided to sell my apartment on Park Avenue, buy the whole floor of a building in financial district so that I could have a home photo studio eventually. And so, in other words, my life was going through major changes. And then I go back to working for Vogue. And one of the first really important shoots that I got was the New York collections, fashion and beauty, but mainly all beauty, with Penn and Polly. And that was the first time I started doing abstract makeup. And so, in other words,
this is in the 80s.
This was the early 80s. This was 81, I believe, because I went back to work in like 81, seriously back to work. And well, that totally changed my career. I mean, for the better, because I was no longer the guy that, did beautiful makeup and hair. I was now really considered an artist. And for the rest of my career, and to this day, I'm really grateful to be to be called that, because I mean, hair and makeup was my art, and I never stayed in one place with it. I mean, first of all, I couldn't, because I would get bored if I did the same thing over and over. But also, I mean, I was Vogue's visionary. I mean, they called me that, so I had to be that. I had to continue to create new things for them, and just to keep moving forward. And honestly, so that it went on all through the 80s. And so by the last year that I was working for Vogue, which also was the last year that Grace Marabella was working for Vogue. I think I did some of my absolutely most beautiful work in like that last year for Vogue. The most modern, the most natural. I mean, I did a sitting with I may have to tell you, Monica Schneier, right?
Oh, yes.
With Wayne Mazer. You have to look at those pictures. They're not a lot of pictures, but they're really, it's beauty. And the photographer was Wayne Mazer, and the editor was Andrea Robinson, who I did some of my most important sittings with from the time that I started working with her at Mademoiselle. And so that was incredible. And then my very last sitting for Vogue was with Jade Hobson, and Jade called me. She said, Rick, this is going to be my last sitting, and I want to work with the two people that I have worked with the most, that I love and trust. And would you agree to do just makeup with John Sahab doing the hair?
Oh.
And I said, sure, of course, absolutely. And what did I have to lose? It was the last time I'm working for Vogue, right? Sure. And so it turns out, so that was with, again, with Wayne Mazer and with Carrie Otis. And you've got to look at those pictures because they are breathtaking. Breathtaking. The most, and honestly, the makeup, I'm so proud of the makeup. It was, we're at the beach, and you'll see this picture of her in a sarong, and she just, it's in my feed. She is just so luscious. I mean, there's no word for it because she's just so glowing. She's just, the makeup is just glowing. Her hair is wet and kind of, straggly. And she's so sexy anyway. And Wayne Mazer takes the most beautiful pictures, or did. And so that was it. That was my end in Vogue. And then I started taking my own photographs in 1989. By 1992, I was shooting advertising. In fact, by 1992, I had already shot a campaign for Diesel Jeans and for AX.
Wow. And for whom?
AX, Armani Exchange.
Yes.
And all young, sexy, modern pictures. I did totally opposite of what people thought I would do as a photographer. I was not interested in copying anybody else's work. I had learned all the wonderful things that I had absorbed from all the wonderful photographers that I worked with and editors that I had worked with. And then I just did my own pictures. Perfect. I stopped even looking at Vogue or Bazaar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
How amazing. You have had quite the career, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Looking back at it, because, first of all, honestly, when I stopped taking photographs at the end of the 90s, actually, I had been in the business for over 30 years. And the thing is that I realized that it could be really nasty. And I absolutely realized how incredibly well I was treated as a hair and makeup artist. I can't say that I was treated as well as a photographer. And so I finally just said, you know what? I'm going to go back to my first love. It's interior design. And I started doing apartments and homes in 2000. And that's what I do now. I also have furniture, lighting, objects, fine art showroom, gallery in Hudson, New York.
Nice.
And that's what I do. And I had the most incredible experience recently I came out of retirement for the most amazing young person who I met on Instagram. Well, two young people. So the person that I absolutely, that I agreed to do a shooting with, where I did his hair and makeup, is Bryce Robert Anderson, who is, everybody just has to just look up Bryce Robert Anderson on Instagram, because you're going to be blown away. This person is, he's like a modern day Cindy Sherman, but his pictures are totally 21st century. He is also a working model who models both as a male and a female.
Wow.
Incredible.
And, well, the person who works with him the most is Sam Visser, and his handle is Sam Visser Makeup. He has just been put under exclusive contract to Christian Dior.
Wow.
Worldwide. Bryce is 19. Sam is 21.
Huh.
Bryce is now not only doing his incredible portraits of himself, or not portraits, but stories, which have already appeared in Vogue and Allure, by the way, on him.
Amazing.
And he's also appeared as a model in Italian Vogue. The pictures are wearing female clothes are extraordinary, where it's Italian people did the hair and makeup. No, he's done all kinds of things. And now he's shooting for people like MAC Cosmetics. He just did a campaign for them.
Wow.
Amazing.
And I got to shoot with them. Sam,
Wow.
Incredible.
they asked me to do it. I at first was reluctant. I agreed to do it because of Bryce, because I had this feeling from talking with Bryce on the phone and looking at all of the photographs that had been done of him. And I said, there is an extremely beautiful person there inside, under all of the makeup that they normally put on Bryce. There is and I'm actually choking up. I am going to expose that beauty to the world.
Wow.
And that's what he wanted me to do. And that's what we did.
That's so wonderful. I actually had a look at their feeds, both of them, Bryce Robert Anderson and Sam Visser, super impressive.
Yes.
And of course,
And
now they're working with a legend.
the thing
Gillette.
is that it was the most incredible experience, honestly, one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
Because the moment I started to do his face, it was like I had never left the studio. It was like I had never stopped doing hair and makeup. The pictures are extraordinary. Bryce looks so beautiful. And Bryce also does incredible layouts of the photographs that he does, So in other words, every time you see Bryce's photographs in a magazine or whatever, he's generally done the layout. Even for advertising, where Bryce was the model, he did the layout. So he's absolutely brilliant. So Bryce is going to be working on the layout for our pictures. He's going to be presenting them to magazines that I cannot name yet. But it's very likely that these pictures are going to be published. And I can only say that I could not be more grateful, and I could not love two young people more.
We love hearing that. You're truly inspirational and very humble. And
Yes.
our listeners will just really be really, really impressed.
And you must let me know when that layout comes out.
I will. And if I get permission,
I can't wait.
I'll even send you a preview.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
What a
I would
treat.
so love that. Thank you.
But I have, but I was absolutely doing what I always wanted to do, what I wanted to do for Revlon. And we discussed a contract, and they never would give it to me. But I wanted to be a creative director and do the hair, the makeup, the photographs, the whole thing. And I got to do that on this shoot. So
Wow.
Rick, your career has been legendary. Stephanie has talked about you in the past on some of our
I
podcasts.
talk about you all the time.
And she always mentioned you're a Renaissance man.
oh, I love that cover.
Me too.
And
And,
the cover-
and the layout. I'm just holding up for our listeners, I'm holding up the cover of Vogue February 1979. Jacqueline Smith,
That is,
makeup by hair and makeup by
I do love that cover. Wait, what year was that?
79.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. That was before I kind of took my year or so off. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
She loves it, by the way. I mean, I'm not like friends with her, but she has it huge on the wall in her office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
Plus the Bazaar cover that I did with her, which is in my feed as well, by the way, that was shot by Albert Watson.
So, Rick, for our listeners, if they want to see your feed, can you tell us what your handle is on Instagram?
Oh, yeah. You go to Francis R. Gillette on Instagram, and there you will see the work of Rick Gillette, both as a hair and makeup artist and a photographer. And the pictures that I posted today are pictures that I had done for my portfolio in the early 90s. And I'm very proud of them.
Well, what an honor it is for our listeners to be
you-
able to check out your
You
work.
can take a look at them right now.
Well,
Yes.
once our listeners hear this
Yeah,
podcast,
thank you so much.
they will.
Yes. And thank you so much for being on the program today. It's been such a pleasure. I've been really looking forward to it.
Yes, me
No,
too.
So thank you so much.
Believe me, the pleasure was mine. And really, thank you for letting me really open up to you. But that's who I am.
Well, we appreciate your candor. We appreciate hearing the stories. We know our listeners will be thrilled. As Stephanie mentioned, we talk about you all the time.
Yes.
So to actually have a legend on our show like ourselves, and we don't use that word legend lightly.
No.
In this case, it's completely appropriate. And we're really honored that you decided to join us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Wow.
Rick.
Like I said, I'm thrilled. And you've had plenty of legends on. You've had plenty of other legends on. I'm certainly not. Well, I'm certainly not. If I am a legend, I'm certainly not the first. But thank you so much.
You're a great
Thank
company.
you.
Thanks again, Rick. It's really been great.
Thanks.
And enjoy the rest of your summer. Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay, well, you too. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for listening to Uncovered Vintage Fashion Magazine Review Podcast.
Uncovered was produced by Morley Schulman with music by David Renda and logo design by Alan Lipman.
So remember, if you liked Uncovered, be sure to tell 2 friends about it.
And I'll tell 2 friends.
And so on, and so on, and so on.